This month we're talking about reaching higher. Today we're talking about when the road gets rocky. So here's the thing, guys. What we present here is a series of tools that make our lives better and make the world a better place. It does not give you a get out of the human jail free card. It does not mean that you will never ever experience loss or frustration or a zit just as you go out on a date. It does not mean that this is a get-rich-quick scheme. It simply isn't. So if that's what you're here for, I'm so sorry. Not sorry. This is something that will shift the foundation of your life so that while you may not win the lottery tomorrow, and if you do, we'll be talking about tithing, what it will do is take the foundation of your life, like the bottom level, as low as you can go, and it will raise that slowly but surely. So that your life as a whole is better. And not just one moment, where what we have found over years is that people who win the lottery within 5 years are pretty much back to where they were before they won the lottery. Because their consciousness has not changed. If they have a consciousness of wealth, and that this makes sense, and that they are ready to experience this, then yes, their consciousness was already at the multimillionaire, billionaire, gazillionaire spot. I learned a new word this week. It's a quadrillionaire. It's what comes after trillionaire. I am willing for any of you to experience that. For whatever that's worth. When we start in this particular philosophy, if you're new to the philosophy, the good news is that you're going to go through this phase we call princes, palaces, and parking places. Princes or princess, whatever your particular preference might be, or whatever's in between those two, means that you'll fall in love, and he gets the hearts and flowers and the puppy kisses and the everything else, and it's all light and wonderful, and you always get a parking space, and the house comes through for you, or your house sells that you've been waiting and waiting and waiting for, or whatever it is that would make your life happy. That happens very quickly suddenly. And then, having proven that this stuff works, as A Course in Miracles would say, love brings up everything unlike itself. So all of that stuff you were trying to escape, guess what's here to visit? It's time for a tea party with your shadow side. Like the part of you that would be the supervillain in the comics. And we all have that, guys. We all have that. We're the super person and the villain person, both. So once we have gotten through princes, palaces, and parking places, we need to dig a bit deeper in order to reach a bit higher. And what that means is stuff's gonna come up for you. Your fear of abandonment, your fear of being alone, your fear of, turning into, name your least favorite parent. I'm not gonna do that for you. It's all of the things you fear might be true about you, you suddenly have tons of evidence that that's all you are. Now, this is emotional truth. It feels like suddenly you're just not up to whatever task you put in front of yourself. That's an emotional truth. It is not necessarily a truth that other people will see. And so if you can get a reality check, that might be a good thing. Cash that puppy quick. It is also not the capital T spiritual truth of who we are. The capital T spiritual truth of who we are is already perfect, whole, and complete. Now, when I say perfect, that does not mean you can only get A+ in school if you're going to be here. What I mean when I say perfect means whole. Means that there is no part of me missing and nothing extra. Everything in me is part of God. And so if I say you are perfect, or in the Christian tradition, be ye therefore perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect, What that means is every single part of you is entirely necessary to the continued existence of the universe. If you can accept and embrace that, if you can let that in and find out how all of those parts of you work together and what the natural laws are that make you function as a beautiful, Christly, conscious of our Christedness person, don't put that on your license plate. It will not fit. A happy person, a person who lives in their joy. If you will take in that you are beloved of the divine, beloved of the beloved, as Rumi would say, if you will allow that into your consciousness and practice coming back to that over and over, because most of us slip, then you will find that all of these natural laws that we study here in this philosophy actually work better because you're using them properly. Usually I do here we go. This is a very spiritual tool, not just because you can write with it. When we use the natural laws properly, I know that in order to fight gravity, I have to hold on to this. Otherwise, it's going to fall, yes? I'm pretty sure somebody here paid the gravity bill this week. It doesn't matter who it is. I could hand it off to somebody else. If they hold it up like this, gravity is going to work the same way for them as it does for me. And then I put a physical something underneath it so I don't have to hold on to it anymore. And gravity is still at work. Natural laws about how we create our lives are exactly the same way. It doesn't matter who is using them. It doesn't matter if it's your 50th time today or if it's your first time in your entire life. Here's something that Ernest Holmes said a lot. There is a power for good in the universe that is greater than you are, and you can use it. My version of that is there's a power for good in the universe that is greater than you are, and you've been using it all along, whether you like the result or not. When we use the law better, when we get in alignment with natural laws, we stop fighting gravity and think that, somehow that one rule doesn't apply to us because we've got terminal uniqueness. When we start working with these natural laws, we can get better results. When I start using the science of mind and say, I'm about to make this big change in my life and I have no reason to believe I'm going to end up in a ditch under a bridge eating worms and or starving to death. If I change my thinking about that and I really firmly dive into the feeling of no matter where I go, the divine being is with me and in me and at work creating my life, not because it wants to have some fun at my expense, but actually cares about me. If I do that, I have no reason to not create a wonderful new experience. I absolutely know that this center, physically and online, has a consciousness of wealth, has a consciousness of abundance, has the consciousness to create the next chapter. And it's going to be fabulous and wonderful. Now, in order to do this, the challenge, and this is outlined in most religious traditions, is how do we live in community? It's that power for good in the universe that is greater than I am, that individual. The power in the universe that is greater than we are is reflected as a community. This is a spiritual community, and some of us leave and some of us show up. We have new people coming in all the time. We have different people rising up in service and doing different things. And if we are willing as a community to love each other through the rough spots and turn those rocks in our path into stepping stones, if we will do that, then we can sit here and giggle when the people who are oh so brave as to come up and serve as technicians on Sunday, when the thing behind my head, the words to a song, suddenly we're all singing different songs or the picture's wrong. We get to love on them for that and be grateful to them because they stepped up to do the work, and we love them to bits for it. We each have skills. I would not try and get up here and play the guitar like Steffi just did. Why? Because I don't play the guitar. I did in the 3rd grade to some degree. I am no longer that age. You might have noticed. I grew up. I don't go back and push buttons because I can't be running back and forth. And my joy is up here. Where is your joy? What is yours to do in this community? We always have people who rise up and give. And then we also have people who kind of stay silent. And in some cases, it's because their attention is elsewhere. In some cases, they think they don't have anything to give, not realizing that they are that one piece that if it would, squeak that particular wheel, that would shoot all of us into the stratosphere in terms of success, however you define success. So we learn how to live in community. That is what this group of people do. And for some of us, we have to reach higher beyond our experience of community, beyond whatever the community of our family of origin looked like. Anyone else been to therapy for that? I had to go get a whole master's degree in it to make it work for me. As far as I know, my family has retired multiple therapists. After us, they gave up. And so we have these experiences based on the family we grew up in, and we think that's what a family has to look like. And then, hopefully, if we're all doing our job, we come to a place like this and we find out that a chosen family, the family of people we choose to be around, it doesn't have to look like exactly what we grew up with. We can take the best of what we grew up with and then apply it to our chosen family and allow that to make itself our reality. That is how we learn to live in community. We have to be, the 2 big things we got to practice are forgiveness. Yes, maybe so-and-so fell down on the job. Can you love them anyway? Can you say this too is a face of God and they're going through their stuff? The other thing we practice is gratitude. If I was still the perfection enthusiast that I was in undergrad in my 20s, I might have freaked out over the fact that not everything goes perfectly here technically. Last week we lost a microphone. This week we lost the words to the song. Next week, I don't know. Maybe I'll be the one to trip and fall as I walk on the stage. If I am busy being controlling and unforgiving, then that's going to be an issue. If, however, I will shift from forgive myself for that and shift into gratitude, that last week the mic going hanky was like one of the best parts of the service because it was funny as heck, because of how we handled it, because of how it was handled by the professionals on the platform at the time, Melissa Felipe and Z. Egloff, both of them reverends that are just powerful, powerful people. I highly recommend that you get on ohmygodlife.com and check out their stuff. This week, the 2 techies came together and helped each other, and we can be grateful for them because neither one of them got up. There's a door right next to them. They could have just been like, the heck with this, I'm out. So I am grateful that they stayed at least for another hour. That's not just my talk, that's the whole thing. So we practice forgiveness and we practice gratitude. There is so much to be grateful for in this center. There's Jackson. That's just one seat. There's Bob, our sign language interpreter. There's all sorts of good stuff. There's the newest person walking in the door that we haven't even gotten their name yet, but we know their power and their grace. I may not know everybody's story, but I'm going to tell one story of somebody that you guys actually will never meet, probably. Early in my experience of science of mind, I met in a foundations class a couple, or actually a couple that were homeless. And most of our congregation did not know that they were actually going home to a tent in the woods. They kept a good face on it. Now, You know, I came from San Diego. That's not exactly deadly. We're up here. That can be deadly. By the end of Foundations, one of the two members of that couple had changed their life so much that now I can tell you that that person is a practitioner and has a doctoral degree and is doing amazing work with youth in the prison system. That person walked in feeling less than. That person walked in feeling a little broken and scared. That couple actually had been upper middle class until one of them got cancer. And you know the American health plan is don't get sick at the time. This teaching teaches you how to live in community, teaches you how to choose not just a new family or to add to the family that is already wonderful. It teaches us all how to live a better life, a more joy-filled life, a more giving life. You see, when our cup runneth over, there's plenty to give and share. It's only when we feel like there's not enough that we need to go within and take care of ourselves. And once that happens and once that has worked, then we have plenty to share. And so, back when I was a good little Catholic girl and I learned about what we called the Bible, what we call the Old Testament, which is part of the scriptures that are taught in the Jewish faith. It's just a small part of it. It's not all the books. Who knew there was a sequel, right? Well, any Christian, it's called the New Testament. I was taught that for Christians, the Old Testament taught us how to live in community at the human level. It tells us thou shalt not steal. It tells us don't be stealing each other's partners as well as each other's stuff. Don't be perjuring yourself in court. Don't murder anybody, please. You know, those kind of things. Don't, take care of the elderly and the orphans. Take care of those who need it most. All of what I was taught as the Old Testament is how do we live in community and what's the story of how people learned it? Because you gotta know, it takes some courage to write down all of the stuff that didn't go well and all of the stuff that did. There are other books within the Jewish faith that flesh it out and actually make it a whole different book. But what I was taught is that the New Testament, the story of Jesus, who we call the master teacher, teaches us how now that we've figured out how to live in community, because Jesus was a good Jew and a good rabbi, now we get to learn to live in Christed consciousness as a community. Now we get to figure out how to live with spirit and not just follow human laws, but follow spiritual laws. So part of that, as Ernest Holmes wrote, is the whole purpose of the science of mind is to reconcile the apparent separation of the spiritual world, which must be perfect, with the material world, which appears imperfect. Does that make sense? Our job here is to cease to be so connected to the physical world that looks like it's fallen apart and he did this and she did that and oh, they're idiots. And that's just on the highway. And start to recognize that that is just the first part of the story. And behind that, there is a spiritual being. Behind our own story, we are the spiritual being. And if we could start seeing the spiritual truth and not be fooled by the emotional little t truth or the human truth, if we could start calling in the spiritual truth as what we choose to experience, then we are creating heaven on earth. We don't have to wait till we die. You know, back in the day, there were a lot of martyrs. These were people who were really in a hurry to get to heaven. And so they kind of pushed the envelope. There are many stories of it in the days of early Christianity, people who, the Romans are like, dude, please just stop talking. You know the laws, the Roman laws. Stop purposely breaking them in front of me so I cannot kill you. I really don't want to sacrifice you. But the early Christians thought in order to be like our God, our Jesus, I must die like Jesus. I must be a martyr. Is that an idea maybe we could get past now? maybe. We can stop being martyrs and, oh, it's all right. You have the last sandwich, even though I haven't eaten in 3 days. Oh, it's okay. I haven't slept in 2 weeks, but I'm going to get up and go do something for you that you could just do for yourself. That's not martyrdom. That's codependence, ladies and gentlemen. And that's just not where we want to go. I don't need to be a martyr anymore. I don't need to suffer for anyone else's sins. I suffer because there are thoughts in my head that some people might call sinful. I call, they're just bad data that got in there somehow. And my job is to heal from my own bad ideas. This is what mainstream Christianity would call salvation. Salvation comes from the same root word as healing. I need to heal from my bad ideas. I don't need to be saved from my sins. There's a slight difference there, yes? We get to have the new upgraded idea. So when we come into this teaching and we've gotten past the princes, palaces, and parking spaces, and now we're into the nitty-gritty of it. Now we are learning to take those rocks and obstacles in our path and turn them into stepping stones. Now we get to really start working this process. How do we do that? Take a class. If you really want to learn how to do this stuff, you need to get into a group of people that are also practicing, and all of you can giggle over your silly mistakes at the same time. For some people, that's the foundations class. There are other classes you can take. We have them here, we have them online. If you sit down with a practitioner and you find that the practitioner who works best for you doesn't appear to be working here, did you know there's an entire network of thousands of practitioners out there? It might work really well for you to go to csl.org, CSL as in Centers for Spiritual Living, .org. All of the practitioners and all of the ministers and all of the communities are on the website. It doesn't matter if you're here and you live around the corner from this center, or you're in Timbuk 1, haven't even made it to Timbuk 2. There is somewhere within your reach, there is a practitioner and a community that can work with you, that is willing to be with you through your growth process. That is simply how this works. There's hundreds of great ministers out there. There's thousands of great practitioners. There is absolutely no reason why you cannot have the support you deserve. That is your birthright. It happens. It works. Sometimes you have to kind of prime the pump and do a little bit of work first, but it does work for everybody. These are natural laws we're teaching. It doesn't matter whether I teach them or John teaches them or Mary teaches them or Cyber Sue works for them. It's the same set of rules, and we can all figure it out. I'm sure there's a YouTube video somewhere that explains all this stuff, all the steps. Heck, you can rewire your entire house or car using YouTube. I am sure something as simple as our natural laws exists out in the cyber world as well. So what do we need to do? What's the basis of it? In the Science of Mind textbook, Ernest Holmes wrote, "Our mind must remain firm in the conviction that our life is a part of God and that the Spirit is incarnate in us." Okay. If the divine being is incarnate in me and as me, and I can stay focused on that, it doesn't matter what life throws at me. I think I kind of got that at a deeper level when I was taking care of my mother who was dying and my sister who was sick, and I was the solo minister here, and basically I was a really, really busy and unhappy person because I was pretty stressed out. And at one point, I found myself pulling over to the side of the road to just scream. Stopped doing that because I was afraid a cop would catch me. I wasn't speeding, but I was screaming like a lunatic. And then I started having a little talk with my understanding of God, the one I lovingly call the boss now. I have a little talk with my boss. Don't worry about it. It'll be handled. And what I found myself saying is, my God is bigger than my fear. The divine being is bigger than whatever BS I happen to be believing in right now. And we all know BS stands for belief system, right? When I'm standing up here, it means belief system. We start using affirmations. Affirmation is speaking truth to whatever fear we're experiencing. And so my favorite one for a long time was, my God is bigger than fill in the blank. My paycheck. My God is bigger than my rent that's due. My God is bigger than this car that won't drive. My God is much bigger than the new furnace I need. And as I kept saying that and I kept repeating that, eventually the nickel dropped and I realized that I was telling the truth. Didn't feel true at first. But that's why we keep going back to prayer. That's why in this community, we keep using these tools. We keep practicing forgiveness. We keep practicing gratitude. And we keep coming back to prayer and affirming a higher truth. And so we're going to go to prayer right now. This is the one thing we do differently, and I would suggest that for me is better than how anybody else does it. This works for me. And I would suggest it can work for you too. So I'm going to ask you to go within. If you want to close your eyes, great. If you want to just let your gaze soften and stare at kind of nothing, then do so. Whatever works for you. I stand here equal to my brothers and sisters in the Christ consciousness, one with my brothers and sisters in the Christ consciousness, and speak my word on behalf of all of us. Coming back into the awareness, recognizing once again that there is a divine being in this universe that is greater than we are, and it adores this world through, in, and as all of us. This is the infinite energy of life itself that we experience as true love, capital L love. Perfect love with nothing missing and nothing extra and no strings attached. The divine love, the divine truth, is one in which all beings recognize themselves as divine. The infinite truth of this universe is that we are all well cared for. And so any old beliefs that keep creating and recreating poverty or dis-ease in our lives, they're just old truths and we're letting them go now. I declare in this moment of great awakening, as we stand in the light of truth, all of those old shadows simply go back into the no-thingness from which they came. They cease to have form and become pure energy again, and are now available for us to create the life that we would like, the infinite good and the infinite joy and the sharing and the love and the power and the peace that is our birthright. I know that all wounds are now healed, that all unforgiveness is now melted in the power of grace, that all sense of lack or limitation is dissolved by overwhelming gratitude as we see the world as it truly is. I bless all of that and give thanks that that infinite truth is the truth of our lives. I call it all good and very good, and I just let Spirit get to work doing what it does according to the law. And so it is.